Hello, good crowd. I am so excited. I've got David Bradford with us today. David is the CEO of a company called FluentWorlds. David is a Hall of Fame CEO, tech executive, one of the foremost tech executives ever to work in the state of Utah. You do not want to miss this episode.
Welcome to the Your Mark on the World show with your champion of social good, Devin D. Thorpe.
David, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Devin. It's great to be with you. Nice to reconnect.
Oh, yeah, it is. You know, you and I go back, nearly 20 years, I think. We should probably stop saying that. It's been a few weeks. Yeah. But David was telling me how wise I look with the beard. The beard is new to David. He hadn't seen it before. I told him it was easier than getting a PhD. But David, you've got this new initiative. I say new. You've been working on it for several years. Your wife is a partner in this effort, I understand.
Yes.
Has been.
Yeah, Linda's a PhD in instructional technology. So together we form this great language learning company to kind of revolutionize the way in which people access data and speaking the language across the globe.
Yeah, and so you've started with English, and there are a lot of people learning English. What is it, 1.7 billion people studying English right now?
That's correct. Across the globe, 1.7 billion people. It's 2/3 of all language training is for English because it's the language of the computer, it's the language of the internet, and so that's focus of many, many people. Yeah. And now we will flip our technology at some point to teach Spanish and then to teach Mandarin. But right now, the focus is on teaching English.
It's a fascinating technology. Tell us about the tech and how it compares to the competition, say Rosetta Stone.
Yeah. Well, I see the language learning market kind of in three waves. You know, you go back into traditional classroom instruction with companies like Berlitz and that sort of thing, where you go into a physical classroom, you get instruction, etc. Then there was another wave kind of led by Rosetta Stone with audios and CDs you could listen to in your car and that sort of thing. We're now in the next wave, which is virtual immersion, where you're able to put yourself on your smartphone in a restaurant, in a hotel, in an airport, even virtual Las Vegas or Central Park. And while there, interact with a series of game characters in 3D worlds, and they will ask you questions and you respond. We have speech recognition built by the father of the Amazon Echo built into it. And so it's truly, instead of spending $10,000 or $20,000 to come to the United States to learn to speak English, now you can do it virtually on your cell phone for $10 a month.
Outstanding, outstanding. As you approach this, how do you see that English language learning making the world a better place?
Well, listen, Devin, that's a great question. Many surveys and many studies have shown that once people learn to speak English, that their annual incomes increase 40 to 50%. And so, I mean, it's amazing. So what we do is we are kind of on that wave of elevating lives through technology-based educational tools. And so that's what we've built, and we're kind of disrupting the whole language market.
You also have a Refugee Initiative you're working on. Tell us a little about that.
Yes, the Refugee Initiative is one where we give away a free version of our apps, and we have two, Perfect Accent and FluentWorlds, and we give those away to refugees who want to elevate their lives. It's interesting, I was talking to a Jordanian judge recently, and the nation of Jordan has been inundated. Their population has grown from 5 million to 10 million over the last 3 years as a result of refugees from Syria. And I says, well, how many people in the refugee camp have smartphones? She says, oh, at least 2/3, maybe 3/4. So while they're poverty driven, they all have this little smartphone and they can download our apps and be able to study and elevate their lives through speaking a foreign language with our apps. And so we want to give those away to the millions of people in refugee camps.
Yeah, there's about 70 million people who have been displaced at this point in history. Just a tragic, huge, monumental problem. Great to see you making that effort there. You have been engaged in the past in some remarkable tech companies. You worked with Steve, the other Steve.
The other Steve,
Wozniak. Steve Wozniak, that's right. Was that at
Fusion IO?
Fusion IO, that's right. Tell us a little bit about you've done some remarkable things, both at Fusion IO and at
HireVue.
Company.
HireVue.
HireVue, yes.
Before that, Novell.
Tell us a little bit about your career, your success, and then put FluentWorlds into context for us.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So Novell reinvented computer networking. We were the leaders to connect and allow people to access information intra-computer. And so computer networking, I was there for 15 years. We grew from 30 million in sales to over 2 billion, grew the staff from 200 people to over 10,000 over a period of 15 years. So it was a great run. My last 4 years there, my boss was Dr. Eric Schmidt. So that was a fun relationship. We left the same year. Eric went to Google and I went to other tech startups here in Utah. And that's when I encountered Fusion IO. And we took that company from about 1 million in sales to over 100 million, took it public on the New York Stock Exchange. In that process, I was at a conference in July of 2008, I believe, up in Sun Valley, Idaho, and I encountered Steve Wozniak. And so I had a nice chat with Steve and told him what I was doing. He got excited about it. He handed me his business card. I'm pulling it out here because it's such a fun business card. I still have it after 2008, 11 years. I'll click on it and you can see that it's metal business card and it's got his phone number on it, encoded into an algorithm on his card. Handed me his card. I followed up and asked him to join our advisory board at Fusion IO. And he agreed readily. And within 6 months, we made him our chief scientist at Fusion IO. And so together with founders David Flynn, Rick White, Steve Wozniak, myself, others, we formed a great management team and took that company public in June of 2011. I sat on the sidelines for about 6 to 9 months, and then HireVue came a-calling, and I took the opportunity to join them. And they revolutionized digital interviewing, just like this. You can do a job interview and get it recorded. They ask you 5-6 questions, et cetera. We raised roughly $70 million out of the Silicon Valley and became the #1 digital interviewing company in the world. Then in 2015, I left to join my wife, Dr. Linda Bradford, to revolutionize language training. So that is a bit of a synopsis. In the interim, I wrote this book, Up Your Game, 6 Timeless Principles, and it's endorsed by Eric Schmidt right there on the front cover. So.
Excellent. Can't beat that. Can't beat that. Well, as you look at this, 1.7 billion people studying English, the difficulties of making Rosetta Stone work, how do you feel about your prospects with FluentWorlds?
Yeah, no, we feel super excited. What's really cool is people say, well, does it work? Well, we have over 1,400 ratings and reviews on the iTunes store, and they just rave about us. It's kind of crazy cool what they say. And so if you Google iTunes and FluentWorlds, you'll see all these great ratings and reviews and the comments. So it's like 4.9 on the iTunes store. I think it's the highest rated language training app in the entire world.
Wow. That's really cool. David, you've done a lot of cool stuff in your career. What are you most proud of having accomplished?
I think it's giving people the opportunity to make themselves great. I am the type of manager that really carefully hires people, but once I've made that decision, I just give them the reins and say, go run with it. I think of Jim Dawson, our Senior Vice President of Sales at Fusion IO. Jim knew 100 times more about the market for solid state memory than I did. He'd been in the sales area for years in that arena, and Jim just ran with it, right? So I think of Dan Parker, our Chief Technology Officer at FluentWorlds right now. We give Dan full reign to go out and create new products, new technologies, and so forth, and kind of don't try to micromanage that genius. And so I think that's a little bit of what I have done over the years in terms of building relationships and giving people full reign to make themselves great and make great products.
No, that's terrific. You've also learned a few things. You've earned, the accomplishments you've, achieved have been, hard fought, hard won. What's the most important lesson you've learned in your career?
I would say this, that the world needs dreamers, the world needs doers, but most of all, the world needs dreamers that do. So that execution piece is incredibly important. I think it was Patton that said, General George Patton said something like, a perfect plan or a good plan executed today is much better than a perfect plan executed a month from now. And so I really focus on, hey, let's get it done now. Let's get products in the market. Let's get the feedback, et cetera. Let's iterate, but let's not wait. That's waiting just kills.
Yeah. Well, that's a powerful lesson. Powerful lesson, and it's applicable to everyone, isn't it?
Yes.
David, I wonder what it is about the language training that appeals to you. Why did you get into this business? Was it just to support Linda?
Well, no. I mean, yes, to support Linda. She's been great support for me for many, many, many years. But what I would say is, I think Voltaire, or some great French philosopher, once said, is to speak a second language is to have a second soul. And so I've always kind of loved that statement. So I served a mission for my church 45 plus years ago in the south of France, learned to speak French, and that's always just been great to me. But it was interesting, even going back 45 years ago, people in the south of France, they wanted to speak English. Sometimes they weren't as interested in my religious message as they were the ability to learn to speak English. And so we structured, going back 45 plus years ago, some English language training classes, live ones there in the south of France, and we would have regular attendees. And so when we started to envision what FluentWorlds could become, I remembered those lessons and remembered the importance of learning a new language to them.
Excellent. David, what is your superpower?
I guess it's the ability to connect. Gosh, with guys like you, Devin, I think the key to networking, and sometimes that word gets a little off, but what networking is all about to me is genuinely being interested in what the other person is doing, what they have to say. And when you start with that in mind, where you're more interested in what they're doing than what you're doing, when you show interest in them, when you ask questions, well, how's your business going? How can I help you? What's your biggest business problem that you're facing? When you show genuine interest in other people, the law of reciprocity sets in, and they begin to ask you questions. And then there's this kind of mutual exchange and mutual elevation of people's lives. When trust forms, everything in a relationship accelerates. That can be in a marriage, that can be in a business, whatever. When trust is present, and you and I trust each other intuitively because we've seen each other and followed each other's careers and know each other well. And so trust is there. And so when you reached out to say, hey, can I do this interview? Immediately it was kind of a no-brainer.
Oh, fantastic. That is a powerful superpower. Your book is all about networking and that power of connection, and you live what you describe. It's interesting to me as you talk about the way you approach individuals and people, being more interested than interesting, as my friend Ty Bennett likes to say. You epitomize that approach. That isn't just your talk, that's your walk. I congratulate you on that. David, before you go, and I appreciate you taking the time to be with us, would you take a minute and tell people how they can learn more about FluentWorlds and how they can connect with you personally?
Well, go out to LinkedIn. I have lots of LinkedIn connections, but I'm happy to share more. What I really like on LinkedIn is if someone would send me a personalized message. Oh, I listened to your interview with Devin Thorpe today. Great job. Here's what I do. Here's why I would like to connect. So send a personalized message. That is always a thumbs up on that. LinkedIn, I do a lot. You can go to davidbradford.com if you want to learn more about me. But more importantly, FluentWorlds. We're just introducing, Devin, a new product called FluentWorlds On Demand. Now, our current apps are kind of do-it-yourself, asynchronous apps where you go through individually by yourself in these virtual worlds. Now what we're introducing in a month is FluentWorlds On Demand, where Devin, let's say you want to learn French. You're going to go to, France on a vacation or something like that. Now you go in, create a profile on FluentWorlds On Demand, say, hey, I'm a native English speaker. I want to learn French, etc. Well, we'll connect you to a native French speaker who wants to learn English. And you will be able to go onto your smartphone and see them live in a webcam, just like we're seeing one another now. But in addition, you have the added affordance because of our 3D virtual technology. You'll be able to teleport together to an airport, a restaurant, a hotel. And as you do that, then you can teach the other person English words and English phrases that they might need in context. So it's that experiential learning. So FluentWorlds On Demand, watch for the launch of that soon, and connect with your friends all around the globe and learn in live peer-to-peer interactive sessions.
No, fantastic. Well, again, David, thank you very much for joining us today. We really appreciate it, and we wish you every success in teaching the world English.
Hey, thanks a million, Devin. And stay tuned because we'll be teaching them Spanish and then Mandarin and so forth. But it's great to be with you again.
All righty. Thanks a bunch, David. Take care.
Take care.
Let's
Bye-bye.
do some good.
Devin Thorpe's mission is to end extreme poverty, improve global health, and mitigate climate change before 2045 by finding and sharing the stories of those who are doing the most good.
Thanks for tuning in to the Your Mark on the World show, the Social Impact Podcast. Please subscribe via YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or Spotify.